77 WABC celebrates Black History Month. Thanks for the delicious lunch from Judy Z's Sports Bar and Tavern. Now, this is the 77 WABC Black History Month Roundtable. Here's Jania Butler.
And I'm going to pass the mic to Brother Earl.
When I say black people, you say yeah. Black people?
Yeah.
Black people?
Yeah.
We are the offspring of ancestors that refuse to die. Beautiful, bloody, but unbound. So say it out loud, black people.
Yeah.
Black people.
Yeah.
We are the offspring of ancestors that refuse to die. Let me tell you a story that travels from green pastures to the island of Gory. From E-Way to the first E-Bay, while families say hello and goodbye. Try as they may, bringing hell and high water, slavery and outright slaughter to diaspora. Cast to the four winds, subjected to sins, only God can reason why. We are the offspring of ancestors that refuse to die. From Alexandria to Arkansas, Benin to Bmore, we have seen more death and destruction. Slavery and outright destruction, laid low under the guise of being inferior. But we rise like the tide on the banks of Nigeria, born to walk in the light, but we'll fight to be free. So let's celebrate the citadel in Haiti. We are the offspring of ancestors that refuse to die. Let me tell you a story that travels from green pastures to the island of Gory. From E-Way to the first E-Bay, while families say hello and goodbye. Try as they may, but whether Jim or Jim Bay, boycott or bouvier, be it Ali, Nkrumah, or Claude McKay, somehow we make a way from the island of Six, the Am and the Tuskegee, from Tucson to Tupac, to the bebop to the boom bap of hip hop, the work of Sheikh Anta Diop, the OG on the block, whose eyes have seen the glory of Shirley Chisholm to Barack. And you don't stop. Keep on. We are the offspring of ancestors that refuse to die. Who am I, or you for that matter, not to be bold, bountiful, and blacker than the midnight sky that graces the motherlands, or the unfettered love that resides in your mama's hands? We are the offspring of ancestors that refuse to die. And when we acknowledge the reasons why, being optimistic, a breeze. The impossible, done with ease. A hardship, if you please. The hearts and minds of us stand on the leaves of family trees. We are the offspring of ancestors that refuse to die. And the only way to honor their sacrifice is to break your shackles and live.
That was Brother Earl. He's been with us for years on end, as always, open with it. And I want to thank everybody for being here today. My name is Jania Butler. This is the Black History Month Roundtable today. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank John and Margot Castabatidis for having us at 77 WABC. We have a wonderful panel today, a great conversation. But I want this conversation to be just more than the panel. I want everybody to dig in, because we all have a piece in this. And Black history is American history. And I think that we can start from there. Mr. Katz?
Well, I'm John Catsimatidis, and I am CEO of WABC, and we are happy to be bringing this together as Black History Day today on President's Day.
Yes.
And to talk about how far has Black people gone in since Martin Luther King, maybe.
Absolutely.
And have we made enough progress? And what else do we have to do to make more progress? And I'm very concerned about that. I'm also chairman of the Police Athletic League, which has tens of thousands of black children, and we try to help as many as we can. I wish I could help 100% of them, but, I'm happy if we can help 30, 40% of them or whatever. And I like to hear the input from everybody. What else can we do to save these kids? And they deserve to be saved. I've worked for the Police Athletic League, excuse me, for 40 years. So it's not, I didn't come yesterday. Mr. Morgenthau trained me. I was born in Greece, but I lived on 135th Street between Broadway and Amsterdam by City College for 20 years. When I made a few dollars, I made sure I escaped. And, I say the same things to people. What will give you the incentive to escape and try to make something better of yourself? Not that Harlem is bad, because real estate prices in Harlem, if you stayed in Harlem and kept your real estate, you made millions. Thank you, Janine.
Yes. So I'd like to introduce you to our special guest today. Flew in from Ohio, Mr. Stephen Hightower of Hightower Petroleum.
Hi, well, thank you very much, Janae. Steve Hightower, President and CEO of Hightowers Petroleum Company, and we family business started actually in the janitorial business in 1956 when my father kind of started. Incorporated Hightowers Janitorial Service, I think, in '61. But that's where I cut my teeth in business. As a child, I used to go and clean with my parents. By the time I was 16, I was running a crew. By the time I was 18, I was negotiating commercial contracts. Fast forward, probably in 1981, I was selling industrial materials to Ford Motor Company, state of Ohio, and other industry. And the state of Ohio had a set-aside. And during that set-aside, one day they set aside fuel. And BP had had that contract for 32 years, but they weren't playing a set-aside game. They didn't think anybody would be able to bid on that contract. But being transactional and understanding how to go get a supplier and how to bid and actually win the contract, my first contract was the entire state of Ohio. It wasn't motivated from being, in school, studying it. I didn't work for the industry. I was transactional. And from that day, fast forward 42, 43 years later, I'm in every state in the United States. We do over $500 million in revenue in that range. We do all private sector. And so you can start from a little of nothing and make it out of something. But it's not a matter of what you can do. It's what your mind can tell you have the possibility to do. And that's what we have to take to our kids, is show them the possibilities of what a black person can do.
Amen. We have another special guest in the house, Mr. Thomas Watkins, owner of the Challenge Publisher Group of the Black Press of America. Dr. Watkins.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be here with such a distinguished group of gentlemen and ladies that I'm in awe now. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, except I've been doing it since 1953 when I went into business, and I've been in business ever since. And I've been successful, but I've been successful and happy to be able to do the things I've been able to do. And it's basically a journey of love, even though it's not all like love. There's some violence in there, and there's some mixing it up in there, and then there's coming back and making up in there. But it's always for your people, and it's always for recognizing that there's so much further to go. And so I I'll say this: I used to be 6'7", 300 pounds, but now, and I say that jokingly because I've gotten older and I'm doing so much less, and so I join groups and I've come here to join you to see what we can do and to learn from these distinguished people where my place is. And now I used to be out on the picket lines. I used to just run up and down. I used to get out and jog in the morning with the kids. I used to do a lot of things that I just can't do now. So, we've determined that to change just a little bit, and I'm directing all my energies to the health of black people and to make them, when COVID came and so many of us died, I got a lot of statistics of what it was and where we were in the community and how much help we really need to remain healthy, because you can't do too much if you're not healthy. And we want to just encourage everybody to be healthy because you're so much more alive, and you're willing to help so many more people if you are healthy. And so that's one of my main things that I look forward to, is making sure that the black community realizes the things that they can do to bring them back to health. We have, really, because when I look, every year I look around, I come back, and I look at what we did in 1960s and 50s and 40s, and I look at the pictures again and again, and it's almost like the first time, because I see how strong we were to be out on the line in the face of what we did. And we were dressed. I happened to be looking at the thing, and I said, wow, look at them. They're going to get bit and beat, and they were sharp. They were sharp. They had shirts, ties, hats, walking press suits. And the girls were, I always look at the girls. I'm a girl watcher. And so I watch them, and I go by with them. But they were all beautiful. I mean, just beautiful. I know they were beautiful on the inside to just attempt to walk into that malaise of dogs and beatings and people that just meant them harm. And they just kept right on walking. And I was proud of that. I get strength from that every time I look at that. So anyway, that's where I am. I'm sorry I don't have enough money like the gentleman down there loan everybody some money. But anyway, that's wonderful. It's wonderful to be here and be a part of this. Thank you.
Yes. And our next special guest out of Baltimore, Maryland, Miss LaTanya Lawson-Jones of the Nominee Hall, Slave Legacy, and Miss Jones, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure.
My name is LaTanya Lawson-Jones. I am the project director for the Nominee Hall Slave Legacy Project, which is a genealogical research project to find the present-day descendants of 511 enslaved people that were freed by Robert Carter III in 1791, 72 years prior to the Emancipation Proclamation. So my background's in IT, and so I found this data about this enslaved community, and I decided that I was going to digitize it and turn it into an electronic process where people can ultimately go and find their ancestors. So I partnered with Ancestry.com to create a tree that includes all of the 511 enslaved that were freed. And we basically do the genealogy work moving forward. And basically people who are looking for their ancestors are looking backward in time. So if my research can get them closer to their ancestors, I'm moving from the past and they're moving from the present. So this project ultimately started because I descend from what is now 3 families that were listed on the deed of gift. Both my 6th great-grandmother and grandfather and my 5th great-grandfather were listed on the deed of gift and were freed in this emancipation. And so this work is very, very personal to me. It's important, I think, because when you think about every generation moving forward from that 511 people, many of them had 12 and 13 and 14 children. And so the number of people for me to find is infinite at this point. And so I do this work ultimately to better for our people and help them to learn. When I looked at the deed of gift for the first time and was able to feel the ink raised off the page with my ancestor's name on it, it was a completely transformative process for me. And so I wanted to allow other people who are descendants from this manumission to have that same experience. And the fact that the document from 1791 is still in the courthouse and available for people to go and look at is a remarkable thing. And I felt like it was something that was worthwhile doing. And so I started doing the work.
Awesome. So our last group of special guests is our great audience. So please, everyone, give yourselves a round of applause for being here today. We have awards for Black excellence and entrepreneurship right after the panel. So let's get right into it. Black history is American history. Many challenge that. Many think that it's not a part of American history. But let's talk about why it is a part of American history. And you can jump in as necessary.
Well, I'll start. Traditionally, the African American experience in the 50s and 40s was very, we were in the janitorial business, something that didn't cost a lot of capital to engage in, and something that quite honestly, the whites didn't want to do, okay? And that was clean up behind them. And so, you know, my mother and father came from Mississippi, probably in 1948, I believe they arrived at Middletown on their way to Detroit. Stopped in Middletown, went to Armco Steel the next day and got a job, and we stayed in Middletown. I was born in Middletown, Ohio, and in the janitorial business, people look at me during my, I guess, time as I was growing, and they always looked down. Well, you're a janitor. You know, I was proud to be a janitor, okay? I was great. I wasn't good. I was great. I was at what I did. And that was the principles that we learned as kids in growing through business of being excellent, even when it came to cleaning, okay? And so that transcended. Today, I've got grandkids that I'm doing the same thing. I'm starting them when they're young. I'm starting them when they're 12 and 13 years old, coming into the office to see what's possible. And, you know, the biggest thing the threat to our youth is not letting them see the possibilities of who they can be. All right, and a lot of times we don't get out of our neighborhoods, we don't get out of our cities, we don't get to see what's possible because the examples that's shown are not examples that we really want them to, you know, garner over in the long term, but it's the environment that they live in. So how do we as business owners, those of us that have taken that step, that has gotten that mindset that we can be whoever we want to be, how do we put that back into our youth? How do they see a Steve Hightower walk in and talk about being in the petroleum business, talk about doing business with major corporations, the AT&Ts, the General Motors, the Duke Energies? How do we give them hope and possibilities that they never see maybe at their own home? It's up to us to be able to bring our own people, because when I was little, it was only white people who had nice cars and nice houses and nice jobs. My father worked in a coke plant at Armco Steel. He would go in with a suit, be solid black with soot, take a shower and come out with a suit and go to work. Go to his own business because he had a cleaning business as well. So I always saw that excellence at a very young age, and that's who I wanted to be. We need to take our kids and bring them along at a young age when they're impressionable and not wait until they got into the world and then think that you're going to bring them back and make them something that somebody else have already taken them into a whole nother direction. So that's our responsibility, each and every one of us.
Wonderful. Black history is American history. Mr. Katz? What's the
It
fight
is
about
part
that?
of American history. You got to remember, we came. People came in 1492. That's 1500. You go to some European cities, and they say this building was built 2,000 years ago, and this building was built 1,000 years ago. So, America is very young, and black people started to come over in the 1800s, mostly. And unfortunately, they were enslaved to Lincoln, and today's Lincoln's President's Day, and we're celebrating Lincoln as part of President's Day. And but they were freed, and the country is now 300 years old. And unfortunately, black people were slaves for 50, 60 years of the 300 years. So America is your country. America is your country too. And my concern is making sure that you get your piece of the pie, and that you get, what do we have to do to make sure that kids get the education and learn about black history in school, but learn about all history in school. And now, some of these people with this woke culture, they're taking down George Washington's statues. They're taking down Abe Lincoln's statues. They're taking down Jefferson's statues. Why do they want to destroy history? History is history. Put the statues in the museum if you don't want it outside. I mean, but don't destroy them. You know, history is history. I mean, I jokingly said the one time when I was on the radio that when they were talking about taking down a statue, I said, then maybe somebody should go to Atlantic City and take down Caesar's statue. He had more slaves than anybody we know. I mean, you know, could you imagine Caesar's palace without Caesar's statue? I mean, you know, you have to, I apologize. Yeah, you have to joke around a little bit just to have a little bit of, you know.
Of course.
Yeah, but I worry about America, which way we're doing, what's going on right now. I worry about America's future. 2026 is the 250th anniversary of our country, and Mayor Adams asked me to take charge of Federal Hall, because Federal Hall downtown was the first capital of the United States. So I'm probably going to do that. And you know what the definition of taking charge? How much money are you going to raise? But I'm proud of our country. I'm an immigrant. I came here and I was an immigrant. I was only 6 months old, but I'm still an immigrant. I love America, and I think America was created, all people are created equal. And I want to keep the original Bill of Rights, the original Constitution in place, not tear it up. And I want everybody to have an education. And I think having an education, you'll be able to escape if you're from a poor little town, or I came from 135th Street, you came from a poor thing. You know what my mother did? I'm going to give out, by the way, at the end of this session, I wrote a book You know why I wrote a book? I wanted to write it before I get Alzheimer's. So my kids know where I came from and where they came from. And we'll be giving it away, and if anybody wants to autograph, I'll autograph it. It's worth twice as much on eBay after I autograph it. But it's, why am I working so hard? I'm now almost as old as you.
Almost.
Brooklyn Tech class of 55, Brooklyn Tech class of 66. The lady that created the Washington Post had a statement. I am 75 years old. I'm working almost 7 days a week still. I want our country to survive. We're going to survive. We're going to survive. But our kids and grandkids, we want them to have the United States of America, the way we know it and the way it was supposed to be and supposed to be. And God bless America. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think it takes conversations like this for us to be one in the same and one in difference and understand where everybody is coming from. So I think that's very important because we have a panel here that's generational. And I think that, and then we have an audience that's generational and very mixed in conversation. And I think that's what it's going to take to move the needle forward. So, Mr. Watkins, Black history is American history. Why?
Black history is everybody's history. We started history, and history starts with us. And I just like to make a comment on what he said, because when I was a kid, and a job, whatever job you had was a good job. I mean, I had people walking up and down the street, and if you had a job, whatever it was, you weren't lazy, you weren't this, you weren't that, you weren't a lot of things, but you took whatever job because it was a survival situation. And Black history, when I talk about Black history, we were always here. Everything the world, the universe is because we did it. That's how I feel. Now, whether that's accurate or I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, we preceded the dinosaur. And they're gone. And when everything else is said and done, we're going to be on top. I just believe that. I believe that when you look at the Black woman, more than the Black man, because I like looking at the Black woman. Yes, I'll say that. But the power and the strength of the Black race is right here in the men and the women. And when I think of America, America has taken advantage of us. There's no doubt about that. You can just look at the history we have and deal with where would it have been without us, and where would it have been if we didn't bring the resources and the skills and that patience. That patience, you gotta put that, because we built the mansions in the South. We built that. We helped build the Capitol in Washington, D.C. We did these things. We weren't dummies. We weren't dummies. And I just anticipation where we're going to be. And I see us as always being and moving towards the greatness that we are, to be exemplified and to continue to bring the world with us. Just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. Because I come back from the future. So you can take everything I'm saying. You can take everything I'm saying as not speculation, but of things I've seen and know are there. And I came back here to ABC to tell you that.
Absolutely.
To tell you that, let you know that. You know, there's no remorse in me. I mean, there's no weakness. There's no fear. There's always, we're gonna be there. We're gonna be on top. The strength that I see in your faces keeps telling me that. So when you talk about America, you talk about the world, you talk about things that are necessary, you talk about future things to do. The young lady with her businesses and him digging for oil and all that's going to all happen. And let's believe that it is. I don't limit it to America, not really, because we are going much beyond that.
Dr. Watkins, can I jump in on what you were saying, particularly as America was built and as the Europeans came over, you got the Irish and the English and the Brits. As they got here, it was after they got here that they changed their identity to become white once they were here in the United States. And they were able to gather land just by tilling it. So as long as you went out and you just tilled acres of land, that became your land. And that land is in those families all the way till this day, okay?
Yes.
And so it was even in 1968, when the last Homestead Act loan was made. It was made to 99.9% all whites. And it was against the law, even in 1968, when my father moved from the black neighborhood to the white, for us to live on certain streets. Okay, it was written in the deeds that you could not live where you wanted to live. So it's not just a recent phenomenon, okay, of why, from a wealth standpoint, that we're behind. Because if you look at all of the buildings in downtown here, there, and the other, we don't own those buildings. We don't own that wealth, all right? And because it was against the law for us to be able to own those types of facilities, so, and live in those types of places. So what we've really gone through and where we're starting from, it's not hundreds of years of prosperity, okay? It's only a few decades, okay, of getting our footage to where we now can sit at certain tables, okay, and have a voice that can at least be voiced like what we're doing right now. This is not normal. Mr. Katz giving us something. I mean, it's not normal, and don't take it for granted.
I have to say something. When my first job on 137th Street, I made 90 cents an hour.
That was more than I was making.
But I was really annoyed. You know, I was carrying you didn't have no conveyor belts. I was carrying 4 cases of soda from the basement up those stairs. 4 cases, that's like, it's a lot. And the cashier that only pressed buttons was making $1 an hour, more than 10 cents more than me.
But the average wage probably at that time was 35 cents an hour. You know, let me you bring a point, because I'm a pre-war individual, and my mother.
Which war?
My mother, absolutely. See, I try to predate many wars, but I know about that Second World War, and my mother worked on 125th Street. And he says 90 cents an hour. My mother had to work 12 hours a day in a Dugan's bakery for 16 cents an hour.
Wow.
Now, this was 1940. 1940. That was the wage. That was the going wage. 90 cents an hour was pretty good. Because when my guys came out of high school,
we need that singer right now. We will survive.
We came and they took everybody from Brooklyn High School when you graduated. You went to work for Montgomery Ward. Because you would just go down to Montgomery Ward and they say, "Oh, we're expecting you. Come on in." You know, and this was around 1950s or something. And the wage was just, if you made $1.35 an hour, you weren't living high. I went to work for the Domino Sugar House down on Kent Avenue, and during the summer, and made $1.82 an hour, and I thought I was in high cotton. $1.82 an hour. That was good stuff. Went out and bought me a car, bought this, bought that. But see, I realize now that, it's definitely, and when I talk about where we're going with all this stuff, I'm not talking about, the money actually. I'm talking about where we're going and with what we got and the strength we got and where we can make. I mean, no one really thought about artificial intelligence and all this stuff when I was there, and you can get this little pill and you work for 1,000 hours without turning it over and all that stuff. So I'm not really worried about the material part of this, because the material, there's always something left for us, and it's going to be, the world is left for us, maybe even the universe is left for us. And we just think back. Believe me, I come back. I come back. And I don't worry about, the fact that we only got 2% of everything, when we should have about 14-15% of everything. It doesn't bother me, because I know what the future holds.
LaTanya?
Black history is American history. It's so deeply intertwined in the history of white America that there's no way that Black history should ever take a backseat. Considering Thomas Edison, for example, he made the light bulb, right? But his invention would be nothing without Lewis Latimer, for his filament. That's how all of history is intertwined. So for this panel to sit and say, it's important for us to celebrate Black history, I don't think there should be a label on history at all. There should be, this is what happened, the truth. Tell the truth for what it is. This is what actually happened. My ancestors were freed in the largest emancipation of slaves by a private individual in the history of this country. He freed 511 people. The next closest manumission had 45 people in it. That's the reality of what, for me, in terms of this black history is what it is. It's a part of our American history. Robert Carter III, for instance, was the richest man in America when he freed those 511 slaves. He left Virginia because they wanted to kill him. They burned his house to the ground several times. He left and went to Baltimore. My family's slave labor paid for Baltimore City Hall to be built because Robert Carter III funded that project. So when I'm at home and I'm walking downtown, I go past City Hall, my ancestors paid for that. There's no way we're not intertwined. Everything that is in this country is all intertwined, and you can't separate it. So the idea that Black history is this, one-off thing, no, there's no way. There's no way. When you think about, for instance, Carter G. Woodson creating Negro History Week, right? He started Negro History Week so that he could highlight the accomplishments of Black people who were being ignored. Nobody knew. Nobody knew that Lewis Latimer had the filament. Nobody knew that. And so he created Negro History Week so that that information could be known by the general public, so that everyone would know XYZ did XYZ, right? But his goal for Negro History Week was not to make Black History Month. His goal was that telling the truth about American history was so normal that you wouldn't need a Negro History Week. That we would tell the truth about history and say exactly what happened, who was involved, instead of glossing over and saying, no, I'm not I'm not interested in the black person's part of this, because that's what American history looks like today. When I think about, the Carter family, for instance, because all my work is around the manumission, but the Carter family, Robert King Carter, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Virginia history, but Robert King Carter was a part of the House of Burgesses. He was very close to the governor of the state of Virginia. He was the land baron for Lord Fairfax. So he literally patented land, like you said, that if you cleared the land, you could take it. Well, he patented 300,000 acres in Virginia. For every enslaved person that you owned in Virginia in the early 1600s, my ancestors were here in 1620. So for every enslaved person that you brought to this country, you got a certain acreage to go along with it. So every single person who owned slaves received land for those slaves. When you look at what, for instance, if you look at what happened, Robert Carter III, the man, his grandson, who eventually freed my ancestors, when you look at what he did, he was looking at things from a perspective of humanity, right? He owned his own brother, and seeing his brother in chains plagued him. He got sick with the smallpox and had a vision in his illness, and said that if he got well, he would free all of his enslaved people. And he did that. The climate of our country has always been against telling the black story. It's always been against being truthful about what really happened. And so I feel like Black History Month, yeah, it's great that we highlight what happened or what people are doing, but I don't think that we should need Black History Month. We should tell the truth all the time.
Okay. So let me ask, what is the biggest misconception of the black community? Because I think that when we are stereotyped, when we are put in different positions, I think that people don't really understand our drive, don't really understand our aggressiveness, don't really understand that we're ready for opportunity. So let me ask the panel again, generational, what is the biggest misconception do you feel about the black community?
Well, what I would say is that you walk in the door, the first thing they see is black. They don't see a brain. They don't see how smart you could be, but they see that you're black, and therefore you are at a disadvantage before you say anything, okay, or before you act, and that's a fact, and that's a fact for our people overall. I mean, you're discounted walking in the door. I am writing a book, and it's from 0 to a billion. And you know what? I am making history in an industry where we do not exist. You would think that I could sit up here and not be able to say that I'm the only African American in the industry as an industry player, period. There's not a close number two. There's not a close number two. Wow, that's nothing to be proud about, but it's something that is real and is something that should not be. But we've got industries like that all throughout America where we don't exist, or there's one that got through. Mm-hmm. And that is what we have to begin to change. But America is not opening up the doors and say, come on. Okay, D&I was here for 5 minutes, and now it's gone.
Yep.
At least it's on its way out. And you got to understand that nobody's going to step up and say, here, take what I got. We got to go get what we want, all right? And you got to get it very deliberately. You can't stop me if I don't let you. And I'm going to win as long as I don't quit, all right? And as long as I'm living, the possibility for me to succeed exists every day. That's where we got to be.
Now, Mr. Watkins, let me go to you. You talked about being in suits, and you know, I had the privilege of being with some historians and people along the way who've been mentors to me. And yes, you guys wore suits, and you said that you showed up to get beat, you showed up to change it. So what was the biggest misconception about black folks, and then for us today?
Well, you know, I have really. First of all, you got to have a little luck. I mean, you know, things happen, and you know, oh, I was so smart. Oh, how did you do that? You got to have a little luck. But the misconception, I think, with people, I don't care what the ages are, what our ages are. The misconception is that something is not going to happen, or it's going to happen because someone else says so. I would tell you, when I was in Brooklyn, and I came from an age when I was sitting in a forum, and we were all in the audience. But in the audience, you know, here we were, 15, 16, 17-year-old guys. Nobody had done really anything that people thought was, you know, any particular good. Who had any ability to be whatever they wanted to be. But in that audience, you had Floyd Patterson, who took him 2-3 years to become heavyweight champ of the world in whatever competition was out there, white, black, Chinese, anything. Lenny Wilkins became the winningest coach in the NBA before he you know, and it wasn't, it's not, you know, it's a misconception to think that us sitting here, there's not stars among us. There's not stars among us. I mean, whenever I go in a place and I look and I say, wow, man, there are people here that can do so much. If I don't know what it is, I can't. You know, I don't think I'm smart enough to know everything. I mean, somebody here might have the lotto number and get 500 million. I don't know what the things were. You know, I didn't know Floyd Patterson was going to be the heavyweight champ of the world. I didn't know Lenny Wilkins was going to go to the NBA and do that. You know, but those guys in there, I mean, the singers, the doctors that were there, you know, and it was just so fun. It become so fantastic to me that, you know, how many people did the teachers, you know, when I was coming up, the teachers would always say, well, you know, you can't do this, you can't do that. You go down to the trade school or go over here to this because you don't have the ability to be the things you're talking about. And I don't know how many we really lost because somebody, some person that was supposed to be in authority was telling them what they couldn't do. And I think it's you know, we have to encourage as many people to try to be as much as they can be and try to make it possible. If we have to put out monies to make that happen, that's all right. We have to give our time to make that happen. We gotta pray to make that happen. We gotta pray. But we still have to make it happen, and it's gonna happen. So I think that, you know, it's a misconception to think that we can't do something. And I tell this to all the kids, all around. I said, when I was sitting in in that class. I mean, Billy D. Williams was coming around in that thing. And you know, Colin Powell, we ran off the block. Didn't know what he was going to be. Came there to see one of our girlfriends on the block, and what do you think he was doing? Coming from the Bronx to Brooklyn to make himself known. I mean, why was that? We ran him out, get him back to the Bronx. What's he doing coming around here? You know, and that's the way. They had no idea. I mean, we were in Columbia, and there was a guy in there that we thought wasn't too smart. He don't want him in the fraternities. You don't want him in there. But he became the Attorney General of the United States of America, and we didn't see that coming. Didn't see it coming. But now we do. Now we do. You know, there's nothing that when I look at these kids, I think it's not going to be available for them. And if I can be helpful, I'm going to be helpful to make that happen.
Well, we're going a little bit overtime right now, and don't forget, we want these people to watch it on WABC. And, you know, I think we're coming up on our time. And I just want to say, what do we do to have the future generations be even better? One of my concerns is right now the truancy rate in New York City public schools is sitting down 40%. Who is responsible? Are the parents responsible? They used to have me and you were growing up, they used to have a truancy officer that said, you didn't show up for school, why? Now it's 40%. Somebody bring me the Kleenex, I want to cry. So I think the challenge, Jania, is, and we can have another discussion soon, what do we do to educate our kids and help make them proud of themselves? They have to feel proud, and they need the desire to elevate themselves. I said to somebody before, at the end of the month, or no, the beginning of next month, I have Dr. Ben Carson's coming in. One of the smartest guys, a neurologist, 15,000 brain operations. And now he's dedicated himself to making kids better. And maybe we should have a panel discussion with him too.
Sure.
How do we make kids better?
We have to create systems that look at every child.
But the politicians are lying to us.
Exactly.
They're all lying to us. They I hate to say it, slavery is not over.
Say so.
Yes.
They are enslaving. Slavery is not over. They are enslaving people.
In the criminal justice system.
In all systems.
They literally did not. The Constitution of the United States of America says that slavery is permissible if you commit certain crimes. Like, that's in our Constitution.
If you commit murder, I think you should go to jail.
But should you be a slave?
You should go to jail if you commit murder.
You can be in jail, but do you require slave labor?
No.
Which is
that I don't know about. That's mostly in the South, isn't it?
It is. So there are entire communities built around policing. Only, right? The entire town. Everybody depends on the prison for work, right? So they lock people up, put them in jail, and then send them to the plantation. There's a literal plantation.
A lot of wrongs. All we can do is WABC is one of the most powerful radio stations in the world. Now, when I grew up with you, we had a transistor radio. It was 3 transistors.
Battery.
3. Okay, I used to listen to Cousin Brucey. And now, see this iPhone? It's 15.4 billion transistors. Okay? Make sure you get an app, you put it in your iPhone, and we're available in 50 states, 173 countries, not Antarctica. Hundreds, and we're on 24 hours a day. And we try to tell the truth. You know, I mean, if somebody doesn't tell the truth, you can have my personal email, you tell me, and you tell Jania.
Call them out.
Okay?
Call them out.
I want to thank everybody for coming, and again, Jania, thank you for putting it together.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
God bless America. Thank you so much. Let's save America.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
Absolutely.
me.
So that will conclude this part of the panel. And so we're going to just give out our awards. Mrs. Castamatidis, she's going to join us. Miss Margot, she's part of the two-person wonderful team that allows us to do stuff like this and does world-changing stuff. I want everybody to thank John and Margot Castamatidis because they do the stuff that people won't do, and they change the world one day at a time. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.